You ready? This is the Grow Business Podcast with Cory Mosley. You didn't catch that part earlier. Okay, good. You didn't catch the opening part. That's good. Some opening parts are not meant to be caught. We had the hot mic conversation.
We did have that.
Previously, yeah. So we want to stay off the hot mics here. Yeah. Welcome to another episode of the Grow Business Podcast. We've already started.
That's right.
And we've got some new things. We've got some new sound effects today.
Ooh, yes,
that's
indeed.
exciting, you know. So I'm super excited to have you joining us today. I'm Cory Mosley, and I'm Okay, turn that up, Willie. Well, you know who that was. That was none other than Willie H over there. Getting real freestyle. We might have to turn the levels down on that. That took my eardrum out. But super excited as always to have LG007 Lon Graham is here with us today.
It's good to see you. Good to be here, Cory.
Yeah, Lon Graham's getting
of reason.
Lon, what was that?
Voice of reason.
Yeah, that's it. Voice of reason. Yes, I love it. LG007 starting to get a little fan mail. He doesn't even know about it yet. I think that voice of reason thing is catching on there. Like, you know,
there we go.
We like that guy. You know, it would be, you know, we love what you're doing, Cory. But yeah, we like that like that LG. My goal here is to get. I want you walking down the street. I want you walking down the street and have someone yell out, LG007. Like I was accosted one time at the Publix.
Were you really?
Yeah, when I was closing Virginia this morning, and I'm walking into the grocery store, and some woman in her car drives by, rolls down the window, and yells out, Virginia this morning.
Oh, man.
And I'm like, hello. I like hit it with the wave and we keep going. So, well, listen, we are super excited to have you with us here for another episode. And, you know, as always, I like to start just by being thankful for this ride, for what we set out to do here. I'm still in the infant stages,
right,
of things in terms of episodes and, you know, these type of things, but growth, you know, these charts are pretty cool. These charts are pretty cool where you just see like these little spikes.
Oh my goodness.
That's the people listening. That's
that's growing.
That's viewers and listeners. And so none of that happens without the people that are listening. So please continue to listen, like, share, and we're going to continue to try to entertain, educate, motivate, inspire, and activate. That's an important one right there.
That's a good one. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, a lot of people get motivated, right? And then they don't do anything.
Right.
then, you know, people can get excited.
Right.
They don't do anything. But if you're not truly activated, activation is the only path to action.
Right.
And I just made that up. I like that right there.
Yeah, well, it's a good thing this is recorded.
Yes. I don't have to write that down.
Right.
That's good. That's good. All right. So today's topic we're talking about now, in all fairness, just because I also get, you know, people find it funny that, you know, I make everything a surprise for you in terms of our topics. In all fairness, I did ask you. I said, "Hey, what do you think we should talk about?"
Right.
And you did not come up with anything.
Well, I was so surprised that I was unprepared. I'm just, you know, I'm like, okay, let's roll. We'll talk. We'll figure it out. We'll walk in, sit down, and Coyle.
You got used to it. So I threw.
Right,
I threw a curveball at you.
Exactly.
There's a button coming. I feel like, oh, okay. You know, get loose with the sound effects there.
Do a Phil Necro knuckleball at me right there.
Now, also, we have a studio audience.
Oh my goodness.
We have a studio audience today, which is really exciting. So I'm just gonna shout out our studio audience member and our guest. I'm just gonna say hello. I'm not gonna say any names because she's shy. But we're always happy to have studio audience. We'll be expecting claps and woohoo!
Yeah,
okay.
all right. We got some.
Okay.
All right. Thank you.
All right, but I don't want to encourage studio audience under no circumstances. But this is a special guest with us.
Yeah.
All right. So I did, just for the record, I did give you the opportunity to get involved in that process. You were shocked and didn't come up with anything.
Right.
So now we're back to you're gonna hear it right now. So what's actually funny though is, of course, we title the people know because we titled it in the name of the podcast. So I guess the cat is got out of the bag already because the name of the episode is what we're talking about. But whatever, I still like it this way. Right. It's still exciting to me. But today we are talking about how to successfully work with freelancers inside your business. Okay. Because a lot of times, of course, not everyone has the luxury of having a ton of staff, having a ton of people working in their business. Oh, great. I just love to hire 10 people. That's not very practical for financial reasons, for a host of reasons, even depending on how your business works. And of course, now we are in the gig economy. Somebody sent me a number, some crazy number, like 38 million people are considered gig workers or freelance or part of the gig economy, which means basically working for themselves in some capacity and supporting themselves as freelancers. Yeah, the workforce number those numbers are just going to continue to grow. Right. And really the way that works is having a specialty skill that now you can offer to the marketplace right at scale. So for a lot of solopreneurs, a lot of small business owners, bringing in outside help in the form of freelancers is not only super cost effective, but it could be the make or break difference between doing that. The problem is, you're smiling. I don't know why yet. The problem is, I think there's a lot of mistakes made in that process. I've been working with freelancers for 18 years, I would say.
Lord have mercy.
So love it. There's a lot of mistakes made in that process. And that's what we're going to talk about today. Obvious mistakes like, let's just hire the cheapest provider. Right? Oh, you know what? You can Joe Blow can build a website for $25. Why am I going to pay $2,500? That's just dumb. He's really loose with he's really loose with it there. So I want to have some practical conversation about that too. Okay. So not only from the standpoint of recruiting and being open to how you look at who you're hiring. Right. If you're using sites like Fiverr or Upwork.com, which I've been on Upwork, I think 13 years. I work with a host of people there. Most of them great people. There's been some disasters, but you want to make sure you're utilizing the mechanisms that they have in place, like the ratings, like the reviews, like the assessments of the skill set. Also, and I'm kind of jumping into the things, but also what you're asking to make sure that they can actually do that. Right. I literally, I outsourced something last week, something that was technical, and I used Upwork. And, I do interviews. Like you submit, if you've never been through, you submit proposals, and then you can review the proposals. And I will ping someone and say, hey, let's do a video chat because I want to know, I want to talk, I have some questions. And the woman came on, and nice lady. Right. And we're talking about the software that I need to do. Like the ask was very specific. Okay. I need you to do this in this software. You need to be an expert in this software. Okay. So we get on and I'm like, okay, great. So tell me about some projects you've done in this software. Right. Oh, well, you know what? I was on the website. It looks fairly easy to use. I've done a ton of these types of things before. Right. So I said, oh, and now, people who know me or see me on video, I do not play poker. I like blackjack and stuff in the casino, but I cannot play poker because my facial expressions would never allow me. Like, if I had a great hand or a terrible hand, like my face tells everything. And I'm on video with this woman, and I'm doing everything I can to not hang up. Right. Because I'm like, wait, I just want to be clear. You've never actually used the software that I said specifically in the proposal that you need to know how to use. Right. Oh yeah, but I clicked around, I went in, I did like a free thing, free account. I think I can help you out with this. Right. So let me ask you a question. How are you going to know if there are parts of the service or system that could be helpful to the project if you're tinkering around with, I'm not going to pay for you to train on the software to help me. But what was weird about it, not that it completely went over her head, is the fact that she didn't see the problem with what I was proposing. Right.
Well, probably, and perspective is everything, right?
Yeah.
So you are probably the one person out of 10 that.
Who asked the question?
Well, I'm not saying ask the question, but may have specifically said, this is what I want you to use. And I have an expectation that you've used it. And other people often.
But it was in the proposal.
I get it. Other people will often say, though, okay, well, if you think you can do it, then let's give it a shot.
Who would say, okay, that goes on the stupid list when we talk about tips for successfully working with freelancers in your business? Don't hire experimental freelancers.
Well, that's exactly right, because you wouldn't hire an experimental employee.
Right, but so if you tell me, so I worked with a woman for years on the creative side, did a lot of creative stuff for us.
Right.
Now, she was Spike Lee's former creative director of his agency in New York. Right, so she was new to freelancing.
Right.
But obviously she had a portfolio, so that would make sense, right?
Right.
But she would have never got on with me and said, I got a certificate in Adobe, and I'd love to take on developing all of your workbooks and all of your branding, fresh out of Adobe certification, not school, Adobe certification. Like, I got a certificate,
right.
And now I'd love to take on this project because I'm trying to eat. Trying to get my freelancing business off.
Right,
so
exactly.
yeah, that's step number one.
Right.
Let's not go with your cousin's sister's brother's uncle's nephew who, was able to set up a bike and now you know what I mean?
Who just changed your tire.
Yeah. So I think that's kind of like step one, right? You don't, so in freelance, you don't want to, I know a guy, right? Unless you're talking about, a reference of someone who did the work. But she didn't think there was anything wrong with that. So I thought that was crazy. So I think, number one, clear communication. Like, we agree on that. So if you're going to take on a freelancer, bring freelancers into your business, you have to communicate clearly. You don't want to be in a rescue. You've heard me talk about rescue hires before, right? So now I might be hiring you for your expertise, but I still have to have some idea. Now, I'm not talking about a freelance consultant. I'm talking about a service provider of some sort, right? Maybe you're social media is on fire right now, right? People who are experts in that, people who are going to optimize your stuff better than it's ever been optimized on earth, right? Or they're a YouTube expert, they're an SEO expert, graphic designer, those types of things.
Right.
Well, you got to be able to understand what that expectation is. Now, you could take advice, but you got to be able to lead that process.
Right.
And I have this conversation a lot when it comes to websites in particular. There's a million people that can build your website. Some people will do it for $100, right? They're happy to have their business. Maybe they're overseas or whatever. Right. But it's not just a website. A website's a website. It's a website.
Right.
Right. So there are different levels of skill set that go into that process.
100%.
And what I say to people a lot of times is a lot of people that can build your website, but the skill set is how to structure a website properly so that it is effective. And that's a whole nother process, whether you're a story brander, you're from that tribe of development, or different people have their different frameworks. But you going, hey, I like, here's my logo, my colors are purple, and tell people we're great. Well, they'll do that for $2.
Right.
And then you're going to go, oh, my website doesn't generate any leads. We don't get any activity. We looked at our Google Analytics. We've got 2 visitors a month.
Right.
One of them's you because the IP address is not programmed and not ping, right? So, and your family that you've got checking it out. But that's an area where you still have to be prepared to clearly communicate. Defining the project goals, the expectations, the deliverables, and then establishing what that communication cadence is going to be. Can't hire a freelancer, and this is why I hired them to do their work and never checking in.
Right. You can't just say, here, go run with it.
Right.
And tell me when you're done.
Now, you build trust over a period of time. I have people that have worked for me and that have freelanced for me for years.
Right.
So now I don't get into, hey, go do what you do, right? But then in those early stages, and I don't really care at the end of the day, this is your business and you're the client. So it's important why you want to set those expectations and be clear up front is also so there's no miscommunication.
Right.
I had a conversation with somebody we're freelancing with, and he's like, I told you that it would take 10 days to do this. So I wrote him back. I said, first, we're going to slow down here, buckaroo. Hold on, buckaroo. Oh, I didn't even know that I said that. That was great.
Awesome.
Yeah. I didn't even know you had that.
That is so
I
good.
said, slow down, buckaroo.
Right.
First off, I was checking in. I did not say you're behind.
Right.
Where's my stuff? You're out of time. I'm just doing a check-in. Do you have everything you need? How are things going? Anything, did you run into anything I don't know about?
Right.
Right? I got to you got to manage that expectation and also not be bullied because freelancers can try to bully you too,
Right.
or hold you hostage. I mean, okay, I'm going to tell a quick story.
Please.
So, because when you're talking about these things, color commentary is very important. So it was years ago, probably 15 years ago, we had a guy build a website. And it was a guy I knew, I worked with. He was a website developer. I liked his work. I wanted to build this website. So he built the website. Website live. Everything's fine. The middle of the day, just before we're getting ready to send out this big email to promote a workshop we were doing, an automotive workshop we were doing,
Okay.
the website goes blank. Not down. I want to give you a distinction. Not the website's down like server error.
Right.
It's blank. You go there and it's just blank.
Okay.
So we're like, what's going on? What's going on? So there was an IT guy in the building where we were doing business. This guy used to work for the company. He went on to go work for another company and was freelancing. So
Okay.
I couldn't go right to him. But I went to the IT guy in our building and I said, man, do you see what happened with our site? Any idea? He knows the guy. He said, yeah, he always puts time bombs. So he had worked with some people in the past and he'd done work and didn't get paid.
Okay.
So he started building into his websites these timers so that if something happened, like if you didn't pay him and you're like, I got the website now, the timer would go off and it would kill your website.
Wow.
So the problem here is he had been paid
Right.
and had been paid months ago.
Right.
He forgot to turn off
Oh.
the thing.
Right.
So we found out where he was. This is in my gangster days. So this is when I was in New Jersey. So we knew where he worked. It was about 30 minutes from where our offices were at the time.
Okay.
Myself and my vice president at the time got in my car and we drove to his office, his workplace, not his company, his
Right.
workplace with cubicles and everything in there.
Okay.
And we rolled up in there. And I'm telling you, we're walking through that office in these cubicles saying his name because we don't know where he is. We don't know what cubicle he's in.
Right.
So we're saying, it's so-and-so here. Where's so-and-so? Where's so-and-so? And you see this guy shoot up and he's like, he's freaking out because obviously we're at his workplace.
Right.
But I don't have time to play around here.
Right.
So he's like, so he's shook, as we say. He's shook. So he's like, he's like, let's go outside. Let's go outside. We go out, we go out in the hallway of the office building. He's like, what are you guys doing here? I'm like, dude, our site exploded. He's like, oh man, I forgot to turn it off. I said, dude, we were literally getting ready to push a button for a major promotion we were doing
Right.
for our workshop. Like that was a core income opportunity for us to fill our workshops back then. So like had I pushed that link and people would have gone to the landing page or gone to see for registrations, we would have had a real problem. So I said, he's like, I got to go home. My computer's at home. No, you need to stop. You need to leave right now. I don't care. Tell him your house is on fire.
Right. Oh, so he was at the place where they paid him to work.
Yeah, he was
and
at his
he was
job.
doing this on the side.
Yeah, it was free after hours. I didn't care he did it. Right. But we knew where he worked.
Oh my
so we went in there, rolled in,
Right.
looking, calling out his name,
Right.
and got him to come out and then had this conversation and said, you need to go home right now. Tell him somebody's broken into your house. I don't care what you say,
Right.
but you need to stop right now, go home and turn this thing back on. And he
Right.
did. I don't exactly know why that story was appropriate, but it made me think about a free, because in all seriousness, that was a horror story, right? That was a horror story for affecting the business. I had a luxury that other people didn't have. I knew how to touch the freelancer.
Right.
Reach out and touch someone. I knew how to do that. A lot of us are outsourcing. We're working with people overseas,
right,
other coasts, West Coast, you're on East Coast. You don't have that luxury. So picking the right service provider and picking the right freelancer and working with the right people in your business is super important. So clear communication, being detailed, right? Also setting realistic timelines. What do you think about that?
Yeah, I think, so that story was a very specific example of the person developing your website for you. I think too, we've got to think about it in terms of ongoing relationships, right? A lot of small businesses, solopreneurs, individual business owners, consultants, coaches, in order to maximize their revenue generating time, they will hire virtual assistants. And I think that's also a place where you want to create and establish, okay, these are the roles, these are the things I want you to be able to do. This is how we're going to check in, whether it's once a week, a couple times a week, we're going to talk. Because to your point, some of the people are in the Philippines where I was born. You can't just get on a plane and go fly over to the Philippines.
Right.
Or they're in France or in Germany or in Colombia. They could be anywhere in the world. India.
Yep.
They could be anywhere in the world. So you can't just show up on their doorstep and start calling their name.
Right.
So that was a very specific activity that somebody was setting up for you.
Right.
But there's people that we hire as freelancers to do specific roles for a specific number of hours or specific duties. And I think the important thing is, you talked about it, establishing expectations and establishing clear lines of communication. How often, how regularly, what are you talking about?
Right.
Just because you're hiring somebody to do some freelance work doesn't mean that you don't have the same expectations.
That's right.
Of interviewing them like you would if you were hiring them to be an employee.
That's right.
You want to go through that same process. Now, how you engage with each other and work together is different, and you do it because it's more cost effective to hire a freelancer.
What do you think about the conversation about price? This default, because typically what happens, right?
Right.
I'm going to work with a freelancer. I'm trying to save money. I'm trying to spend money. I'm trying to conserve while I grow my business. And people default, right? They go on Fiverr and they go price. They go what they're looking for, and they set the filter.
Right.
Or on an Upwork, right? We look at the proposals and we're looking at, the hourly rate, or if it's a fixed bid, we're looking at the bid, and then we're eliminating people. What do you think about price mistakes or people's approach to what they're willing to invest or not, or choosing the lowest cost provider?
Well, I think you're going to get, the old saying, get what you pay for, is absolutely true. But I think you've got to decide your priorities before you start hiring people to do extra work, to do freelance work or extra work. Make decisions about what are the most important things. And if you've got to go for the cheapest solution out there, maybe you don't need that right now.
Right.
Maybe you need to focus on other things and invest in things that can generate some revenue so that you can then add freelancers later doing other things.
And listen, here's the gift and the curse. If you're somebody that's just starting a freelancer business, you're probably not going to like this statement that I'm going to make here. But the reality of it is, if you're in business right now and you're looking to bring in freelancers, that vetting process has to be strong.
Correct.
You might not be in a position to risk an unknown. Right. And because that can be dangerous. So not great if you're somebody who's trying to get your first project started.
Right.
But the truth is, many of us don't have any time for mistakes. We can't afford mistakes to be made, or somebody that's trying to figure it out.
Right.
That doesn't have the track record. I look at certain things, like particularly with Upwork, because I spend so much time there. If your project success rate is not in the 90s, you're automatically disqualified.
Okay.
Now, I guess an 86 is a B in college somewhere.
Right.
But I don't care what happened. Maybe it wasn't your fault. Maybe somebody wrote you a bad review. I don't have time to unpack why you've got a 76% success rate. Right. You were wronged. I don't know. But you're not even getting a look.
Well, and what you just did, Cory, was you said, this is something that's important to me. Yeah. This is my priority. This is my criteria. And I think that's really the example that we want people to take from this is establish your criteria and establish what you want to get out of this,
Right.
and what you think is important, so that when you talk to the person, you can define what that is, and you can get it.
And vet to your level of comfort. I'm not saying, like, I don't need you to download a 27-point checklist here.
Right.
Right. Vet to your level of comfort. But what you need to make sure it's not amateur hour.
Right. Right.
These are critical stages, particularly in an environment where everyone now wants to be a freelancer of some capacity.
Right.
Right. What is that skill set? You know, when we talk to people about media and how to do media, well, I can do that confidently because of a history of doing that.
Right.
Right. So, you know, if I want to talk about how to perform well on TV, well, being on TV might help you be qualified to do that.
Right.
And that's what you have to be in the lookout for. You know, there's this world of you don't really have to know how to do everything, or you don't have to really know how to do the thing to teach the thing, or like all of that kind of stuff there. But you got to be on the lookout for that. So vet to your level of comfort, which is you don't need to see 100 examples of somebody's work. Maybe you've looked at 2 or 3 and you're like, hey, I like this. I like how they did this Instagram channel. I like how they set that up. Or here's some examples of campaigns they run for your marketing, or even virtual assistant, right? Here, I want some examples. Here are my typical tasks. How would you handle this?
Right.
You know?
Well, and get them to talk through that for sure. And I think, you know, I use baseball examples a lot in the levels of baseball and the levels of expertise. So in the major leagues, there's A ball, double A ball, triple A ball in the major leagues. And that's professional baseball. Know where you need that person to be when you're hiring them as a freelancer. You may not need to pay for everybody as a professional baseball player,
right?
But you do need somebody that's good enough to play double A ball. You do need somebody who's done it, who's competed at a certain level, and can demonstrate to you that the work that they do is going to be what you need them to be able to do.
Yes.
And that's where you find your balance and talent and what you're willing to pay for it.
So I think that's a great point. So fundamentally speaking here, some of the things we're talking about, right? Price. You can't, no matter what your budget, you can't just default to what you want is highest value.
Correct.
For price.
Yes.
Right? Not lowest price. Do not default to that because you're going to set yourself up for trouble. I know major corporations that bid out the business, went with the lowest I know a software company that bid out the work, went with the lowest provider to save money. That was a train wreck.
Right.
Then had to go to Microsoft and hire them. So you know what that cost.
Right.
And they ended up spending double what they were quoted by Microsoft originally to go back and fix where they thought they were saving money.
Well, they had to fix the mistake.
Correct.
Right.
So,
That's just dumb.
Yeah, that's just dumb. Exactly.
That is true.
So we're going to look at our perspective on price. 2, vet to your level of comfort. And unless you're very well established and can take the risk, you got to be looking for people who really have a good track record,
right?
In that particular area. Communicate clearly. Here's another interesting one.
Okay.
Because you said this earlier, right? Just because they're freelancers, you know, that doesn't make them non-employees to a certain extent, right? Not by the technical definition,
right?
But they still have a specific job function that they're doing within your organization. So recognize and appreciate.
Yes.
If you treat that freelancer purely as disposable and as a commodity,
right,
then you're never going to get the extra, someone going the extra mile, someone taking extra care, because you've also created an environment where they feel disposable.
That's the word, is disposable. If you, and that's the perfect word to use, Cory, if you treat them like they're not a part of the overall success of your organization, if you treat them like, oh, I'll talk to you when I need you.
Right.
I'm going to be demeaning or demanding, and I'm not going to be encouraging and recognize the good work that you do.
Right.
You've got to be able, they're still human beings. They're still people. You've got to be engaging with them, encouraging to them, and supportive to them along the way. I mean, you can't coach them up and say, hey, I like this part of it, but I'd like you to do this differently. You know, you do that to an employee,
right?
Or you do that with an employee.
Sure.
Why wouldn't you do the same thing? to max, you're still dealing with people, even though they're a contractor and they're not a part of your benefits plan,
Right.
which is a large part of why you're hiring them, is so that they don't have to be part of your benefits plan and they can be temporary for a specific job or a specific role.
Right.
But treat them, they're not disposable. And I think that word is really, really important. If you treat them like you can throw them away, you're going to get throwaway work.
Right. Yeah. And I think that becomes a separator.
Yeah.
Particularly where, I mean, as much as freelancers need you, you need freelancers.
Correct.
So you also don't want to be the situation where you're, where they don't want to work with you,
Right.
or like they have options. They're bidding. Someone bids on a freelance proposal that I put out. They're probably bidding on 100,
Right.
and looking to see what shakes out of that.
Right.
Right. And so I want that preference. I had confidence, if I was working with a certain person and hey, something extra came up or something popped up, or I needed something maybe past what they were doing.
Right.
Many times they would do the extra. It's not like they were doing it for free, but like going the extra mile or going outside of that, or I got something on a Saturday when that wasn't the expectation, that it was going to get done. So I think recognition and appreciation goes a long way, and that works in relationships, that works at work, that works with freelancers. But a lot of times I don't see that is something that is part of most people's fabric. So when I hear the bad stories, or, so-and-so left me in the lurch, they didn't deliver. We had a client who she hired a college kid to edit videos.
Right.
He got busy with school.
Right.
The videos didn't get done. Then something happened. His laptop was damaged.
Right.
All her videos were gone. They were lost.
Oh no.
The hard drive was damaged. I fell out of his backpack, dropped it down the stairs, whatever.
Right.
You're trying to save money, maybe trying to give someone opportunity. Like, I understand all the heartstring stuff, young college kid, put a few dollars in his pocket, get some work out of him. Well, none of that mattered when I think it was like 50 videos were lost.
Oh my goodness. Right.
That now had to be redone, now had to do all that.
Right.
Versus a professional video editor, freelancer.
Right.
And those are those points. Now your business is behind. That's why it's mission critical.
Right.
When we talk about what you will do in these freelance situations.
Well, I think it goes back to, like, you talked about the combination of making decisions based on value, and value is really, what do I need to accomplish? And then how much is my budget to pay for that?
Right.
And but you start with, what do I need to accomplish? And then you look for things that are in your budget to be able to do that. Right. Instead of just saying, oh, okay, there's the bottom. Let's go. Let's go to because if you're buying it, let's say you're buying a ticket on a resale to go to an event, whether it's a concert or a sporting event or something like that. When you're buying those tickets, when you go to those websites, they always show up with the lowest price first. That you may be sitting in the highest, furthest seat away from the stage. That may be just to get in the door. That's not what you want.
I don't know what's happening, but something's happening on that stage.
Right, there's some noise. I hear some noise.
That looks like Beyonce. I see.
Right, exactly.
I see some beads moving, but I can't. Right.
Well, I think though that the point that you made is going back to the college kid who tripped and fell and dropped their computer and all that. You're paying for that level of professionalism. Well, that's what the level of professionalism you're going to get. Decide what level of professionalism you need first, right, and then decide what your budget will allow.
Now, I mean, the whole nature of freelancing, there's a risk to it all, right? I've had someone in the middle of a project say, my real passion, this is true. I'm not making this up. My real passion, Cory, is to be a yoga instructor, and I've got an opportunity to go do some yoga instruction for a company, so I'm going to go do that.
Okay.
Like, no worries. Something's coming. Go ahead. Let it roll. Hold on, buckaroo. So, but it's like, okay, I mean, go do you, as they say, but gonna need that PDF first.
Right.
Like, cause that's not what we're gonna do. Right. So what's interesting is we said that, but then the next thing I'm gonna talk about is the idea of independence.
Okay.
Right? So check in set expectations and then check in on those expectations. But many times when you've hired a freelancer, which is supposed to be a professional in a certain niche of some sort, niche, whatever you like, you also don't want to micromanage them. Right. That's probably part of the reason why they became a freelancer.
There's a level of truth to that, for sure. 100%.
I mean, I think, just from that whole perspective, right? The micromanagement of the situation can really put a lot of stress on things.
Right.
Willie H loves nothing more than when I pull up a stool next to the production station. Right. Yeah, he loves nothing more than when he sees me pull that. He hears that stool coming over, and he sits down. What was that?
Yay.
He loves nothing more than when that happens, right? So that's the other side of the pendulum, is you want people to be able to do their work. Just set the check-ins, set the expectations. So it's not, because as an entrepreneur, if you've hired a freelancer to do something, chances are you're counting on it's an important part. Right? So the last thing you want to do is to also be sitting around twiddling your thumbs, wondering how it's going.
Right.
So instead of making it random, that's why we want to have the check-ins.
Correct.
But you also don't want to be sending an email every day. How we doing?
Right.
How we doing? How's it going?
Right.
Or worse, you're connected on Slack or some other communication. Like, hey, just checking in. Did you get that done yet?
Right.
Where you at? Send me what you got.
Right. Well, and
that's going to drive a freelancer crazy.
Well, it's going to drive you crazy too.
Because some people like that.
Yeah, well, it is going to drive a freelancer crazy. It is going to drive somebody that you've contracted to do work with crazy, or that you've contracted to do work with you crazy. I mean, the reason you hired a professional is to do something that you're not qualified to do,
right?
Or you don't have the time to do. So liberate yourself, and go do the work go make the money, go do the things that drive revenue in your business, and like you said, schedule when you talk to these people, and then adhere to that schedule. Prioritize that schedule, because they're going to prioritize it too if you do that.
100%. And those are excellent points. As always, the voice of reason, LG007. Two things I want to wrap together, which is also, be transparent on the payment terms. Okay. I see a lot of things fall apart there. And I'm tying the payment terms with the use of contracts.
Okay.
Right? So that everybody's on the same page.
Sure.
There's a thing in the creative services, professional services world called scope creep.
Right.
Right? Where all of the sudden, you've asked for a little of this, you asked for a little of that, and now you start to that thing mushrooms.
Right.
And a lot of people, you play both sides, right? You're trying to get a little extra from your freelancer, but your freelancer might want to give a little extra. But once we get to the point where, well, I never said I would do that, and then now you're spinning your wheels. Oh, let me check the email. Let me look at this text message. Right. See, that's not clean. That's messy.
That's true.
And just because we're talking about gig economy or we're talking about freelancing, that doesn't mean we have to abandon all the other principles of business and business dealings. Oh, we'll handle that later. Oh, it's a handshake. What did Jerry Maguire's dad say? Not Jerry Maguire's dad. What did Cush's dad say to Jerry Maguire? My handshake is strong as oak. Until he signed with Bob Sugar. Right?
Exactly.
Yeah, then it was, oops, my bad. So let's not have, who was that? Dennis Quaid? I can't remember who played this. But let's not have a Cush's dad moment, when it comes to that. So be clear on what it is you're doing. Like literally in my consulting contracts, it says my responsibilities are ...
Right.
Your responsibilities are ...
Right.
It's not ambiguous. It's not buried in 62 paragraphs. It is called out specifically.
Right.
In exchange for X, you will receive this, and this. Right. So if what their this is not in your this, there's no conversation. I mean, there's no miscommunication at that point.
Well, and there's certainly opportunities to say, hey, if you want to look at redoing this, or if you want to look at expanding the scope of our business, let's look at redoing this agreement.
Yep.
Let's look at adding to it or amending it. But I think you make such a good point and it goes back to how are you working together, clarity and expectations, right? Mm-hmm. If you had an employee, you would say, here are the things that we want. Here's what we'll provide you. Here are the things that we want you to accomplish while we're doing that. Just because they're not an employee doesn't mean you don't have clear expectations. Doesn't mean that you don't, again, they're people. Here's what we're looking for. Here's what we want you to accomplish. Here's what we're going to provide for you to be able to do that. Here's what you're going to get in return. And the other thing that I'll say to be careful about though is that be careful that you make it manageable, that you make it manageable. Too often we try and get so far into the weeds that it becomes a 10-page agreement.
Right.
And unless there's a need for that.
Correct.
Make it as clean and as simple as possible. Make it a 1 to 2 page agreement.
And listen, if confidentiality is a factor, you need to account for that. If you don't want to be in somebody's portfolio, right, you need to account for that because all of a sudden you're showing up on somebody else's website where they're showing their work off. Right. If you don't agree with that, or you've got something proprietary, or you're not, you need to ask those questions and kind of spell that out. Right. Right. And not necessarily be in a rush. If you know you need to if you want to entertain engaging with freelancers, also don't be in a rush because mistakes get made when we go, I need this right now and I'm going to hire somebody in 5 minutes. First person that pings me back, they're getting hired. Right. Well, they might be the one that was freest because they do terrible work and no one wants to hire them right now.
They're usually the ones.
So they're really available.
Right. Exactly.
And they're going to do it for cheap.
Right.
Because they don't do it well.
Right.
And I just think there's a perspective there that we want to take. All right, final thing before we get out of here. And you hit it just a second ago. So see, you kind of, you know where we're going already, even if you don't know where we're going.
We're traveling in parallel lanes for sure.
The voice of reason. That's right. That's right. All right. Providing necessary resources. And you talked about it. Okay. Are there things that you need to make sure that the people that you're working with in that capacity have access to the tools, the software, any information that they need, right? You have to keep your responsibility too. Right. If you're going to get them some support documents, support materials, or give them some direction or an outline of things that you need to get done, you need to meet your deliverable expectations so they can do their job. So it's, hey, how long is this project going to take? Well, on our end, it takes 7 days. Right. Now I send you something I need you to review or comment on, and you don't pay any attention to it for a week, then you cannot come back and go, what's taking so long? Right.
Well, I think in one of the examples of freelance that you talked about in the very beginning was social media and search engine optimization. Right. And we both know a lot of professionals that are speakers and coaches and content providers, and they work with social media agencies and search engine optimization organizations. Sure. They're responsible to provide the content. Right. So you hire somebody to broadcast your content. If you don't give them content to broadcast, that's what you're talking about. Make sure that if they need the people that you hire as freelancers or contractors need things from you to be able to be successful, make sure you commit to doing it too, because that goes back to how valuable or how important do you make this project that you've hired them for? Because if you're not providing them with it, they're thinking, well, it's not important to them. Why should it be important to me? Right. You're gonna get put on their back burner, or you're gonna put lower on their priority list as well.
And listen, bring them into also what is your ecosystem that you can bring them into, right? We use Slack, we use Slack. So freelancers that I work with, I have them join a Slack channel. Okay. Right. To improve the communication but that also goes back to making them feel, part of the team. And so you can cover a lot of these bases, but now I have to do that, right? If I want you to have my email address to communicate, I need to set that up. If you're going to be a virtual assistant, now if I'm dragging my feet on getting that done, you can't do your job. Right. So we also have to look in the mirror and make sure that we are providing those necessary resources.
Yeah, 100%. And again, you're working together, regardless of the professional relationship, whether it's an employee, whether it's a business partner, or whether it's somebody that you've hired as a contractor. You're still working together, and they're still people. So you've got to be able to create an environment where you can be maximally successful. And the way to do that is to is to establish expectations and fulfill the commitments that you've made towards those expectations.
100%. When the church say amen. That was great timing. Willie H is getting really good at this.
He is locked
Hit the
in.
buttons, William.
Wait.
Hit the buttons, William.
He is getting locked in.
We have a whole episode dedicated to the new medley that we have here. But I think that's it. I think we hit the points. I think that freelancing is not going anywhere, and it's a necessary part of growth. It's actually a phenomenal opportunity for people both as a business, because you have people who have retired from certain things. People who wanted to be in the work from home environment that didn't want to go back to the office and made some decisions that now with major corporations telling people they got to come back.
Right.
Some people want to go in a different direction, or you've spent a number of years acquiring a certain skill.
Right.
That now is in demand. Right. So it's such a tremendous opportunity for the provider, but then what a great opportunity now to have a open marketplace to source my needs, without the full-time commitment or the full-time expense.
Right.
It can be a very beautiful thing, depending on how you look at it. But as a business owner, being able to do that, it's a tremendous. But we got to make sure we're hiring good people, not because we're driven by our experiences. And the problem is, if I have a bad experience because I bought on price, didn't ask good questions, I didn't vet to my level of comfort, I didn't clearly communicate, I didn't have the right contract that spelled out what was supposed to be done.
Right.
It ends in conflict. I know people in small claims court and all these different things, right? Bad Google reviews, all these different things that are going on. Now I'm sour.
Right.
So the next time, somebody, I'm coaching someone, consulting somebody, hey, I think you need to outsource X. Oh no, Cory, I tried that outsourcing stuff before. It doesn't work.
Right.
Right. Because you did all those things wrong.
Right.
Right. Now I'm going to go to my database, send everybody this podcast, that they need to hear that's had that is having trauma from having bad experiences. But part of it isn't the people. There's a lot of great people, and I've worked with a lot of great people in 20 years. It is though. But I have also gotten better at vetting. And, I ask specific questions because a lot of times you get templated answers back.
Right.
Oh, thank you. We would love to work with you. Insert company name. We have read your specifications and are very confident. We at insert name. Right. So I ask specific questions.
Right.
So I've gotten a lot better at how I vet, what I require, what I look for. And that will come over time. But going into it with a game plan to begin with is really step one.
Well, and let's go in a completely different direction and go into the kitchen for a minute. If you're making a meal, you're going to get all the ingredients and put them all together first. If you don't put them together the way the recipe describes it, you're not going to expect the meal to come out the way the recipe says it's going to come out.
Right.
Same thing as you vet potential freelancers or contractors. When you set everything up right up front, you have the best opportunity to get the best experience and have the best product on the other side of it. So what we're talking about today in all of this is really create a system and a way for yourself that you can give yourself the best opportunity to be successful in working with anybody, and especially people that you're hiring temporarily or to work on a temporary project or as a freelancer or as a contractor.
100%. All right, we're going to leave it there. I hope, as always, that you found this valuable as you start to work with freelancers or want to make them a better part or want to improve maybe your relationships or your strategies for acquiring them. That was the goal today. Yep. Hopefully the goal was mission accomplished. I think there were some great insights there. And, listen, every now and again, if you gotta hop in the car and go see somebody, that ain't doing the right thing. Sometimes that's what you got to do for sure. So,
100%.
I want to close with how we open with is that great, that thank you.
Yeah.
So thank you for those who continue to stream, who continue to be part of this growing audience of the Grow Business podcast and this movement that we're doing really to educate. So it's because of you that we're able to keep doing this and that we're encouraged to keep putting out these episodes. And so as long as the long as the charts continue to do this, we'll be here.
Right.
You can count on that. I'm Cory Mosley, and who are you?
Lon Graham.
Lon Graham. This has been another episode of the Grow Business Podcast. We will see you next week. And we're going out. Yes. There was a little outro delay there. I didn't know what was happening. But it was like, are you finished? Make sure you're finished before I start music. Yeah, 100%. No, it was good.
As we get out of here.
Exactly.
Here we go.
That's it.
I'll get you out of here on this.
We got the longer mix now.
That's right. That's good. I'll tell you what,
5
William,
more minutes.
we were dropping some hits today, and they were good.
Yeah.
They were very good.
Surprises. Keep it some surprises.
He did.
All right, now he definitely can end. Man, it's kind of long.